In today's video, Apex wants to start in a slightly different way. Before listening to any analysis, I want you to check yourself first with a small 30-second quiz. It is very simple. Take a piece of paper, a pen, or just count quietly in your head. Remember your number. Let's see how many times you answer yes to the following 10 questions. Ready? Let's begin. Do you 1. Get excited easily by new ideas, but quickly lose patience when you have to deal with the repetitive daily work? 2. When you fail, is your first reaction to look for reasons from the situation or from other people before looking back at your own responsibility? 3. When you feel hurt, instead of saying it clearly, do you choose to stay silent and wait for the other person to figure out the reason on their own? 4. Do you feel easily emotionally overwhelmed or react strongly to honest feedback? 5. When conflict becomes tense, do you immediately act cold and careless to avoid having a direct conversation? 6. Would you rather delay and not start at all than accept a result that is not as perfect as you expected? 7. Do you often feel trapped or want to avoid long-term commitments? 8. Do you believe you have a different kind of potential and find it very hard to accept a stable, everyday office life? 9. Do you unconsciously use past wounds as a reason to avoid present responsibilities? 10. Do you feel like you are temporarily living while waiting for some ideal turning point instead of truly starting right now? All right, done? How many questions did you get caught by? I got caught by number 1, number 2, number 3, number 8, and number 9. Be honest, comment your number below. If you answered yes to 4 or more questions, or you realize that a family member or your partner has the exact same signs, then welcome to the world of people who have never truly grown up emotionally. The truth is, biological age and emotional age do not always grow together. That is why some people are clearly 25, 30, or even 40 years old with a mature appearance and a high level of education, but when they face difficulty, they react just like a child. While friends their age seem to be stable and moving forward, they, or even we ourselves, are still struggling, feeling unsteady, avoiding responsibility, and getting stuck between the roughness of reality and the fantasies inside our own mind. Even I have had these signs many times without realizing it. If you are seeing yourself or someone very familiar in this story, do not worry. You are not alone. In today's video, Apex will break down the psychological structure of people who have never grown up from the root. Watch until the end, because this content is not made to judge anyone. It is made to help you find a way out, so you can transform yourself or understand and walk with someone close to you in a more lasting way. Ready? Let's find out. To truly transform a hidden part of the mind, the first step is always to see it in the most objective and scientific way possible. When people see an adult behaving like a child, society is often quick to judge and criticize. People often label them as lazy, selfish, irresponsible, or simply as someone with a bad personality. However, through the lens of analytical psychology and developmental psychology, these behaviors are not simply character flaws or a lack of morality. Instead, they are signs of a deeper psychological pattern, a defense structure shaped to protect an inner world that is already very wounded and fragile. The psychologist Carl Jung once described a phenomenon called puer aeternus, which means the eternal child. This concept refers to people who have grown up biologically, but whose emotional life and behavior are still stuck in the teenage stage. They refuse to face the reality of life, avoid long-term commitments, and always try to maintain the absolute freedom of a child. This is not a conscious decision, but an unconscious operation of psychological mechanisms. According to Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, human beings go through different stages of development, and each stage has a core psychological task that needs to be completed. If a person cannot resolve the psychological conflicts of an earlier stage, such as forming a personal identity or learning self-control, they tend to become fixed or stuck at that stage. This stuckness creates a large gap between their actual age and their emotional age. Emotionally immature people often have high intelligence, quick thinking, and a lot of potential in life. The contradiction is that even though they may understand things very well in theory, they lack the psychological tools needed to manage emotions, face disappointment, and handle conflicts in relationships. Understanding this helps us approach the issue in a scientific and neutral way. Instead of seeing it as a personal fault that deserves criticism, Breaking down this psychological structure is the first step toward finding a real solution for changing behavior. When an emotionally immature person faces stress, disappointment, or when the people around them do not meet their expectations, the fragile ego inside them immediately feels threatened. To protect themselves from pain and helplessness, they automatically activate unconscious defense mechanisms. These mechanisms often show up on the outside through three typical behavioral masks. Mask 1. Sulking and silence. Sulking is a state where a person shows frustration on the outside, but strongly refuses to explain the reason to the other person. In psychology, this behavior is a sign of regression. Their mind temporarily goes back to a very early stage of development, similar to that of an infant. A baby who cannot speak can only cry and hope the mother will observe and understand what the baby needs. In the same way, a person wearing the mask of sulking also carries an unconscious belief that if the other person truly cares, they should understand and fix their mistake without needing to be told. At a deeper level, they choose silence because their self-esteem is extremely fragile. Actively admitting, "I feel hurt because of what you did," makes them feel weak, as if they are emotionally dependent on someone else. So silence becomes both a way to protect the ego and a tool of punishment, forcing the other person to feel guilty and pay more attention to them. Mask 2. Overreacting with anger. The second mask is the complete opposite of silence. It is the explosion of anger that does not match the size of the situation. Just a small change in plans or a different opinion can make them react in an extreme way, along with harsh criticism. From the perspective of behavioral psychology, this is an opposite reaction used to hide helplessness. A person who is truly confident and has inner strength does not need to yell to prove they are in control. That huge anger is actually a cover for deep panic inside the mind. When reality does not go their way, they feel lost and afraid. To avoid feeling like a weak victim, they unconsciously become the attacker. They use anger to scare the other person into backing down. The truth is, the stronger the anger on the outside, the deeper the fear of being abandoned on the inside. Mask 3. Coldness and emotional shutdown. This is the quietest mask, the hardest to notice, but it creates the greatest distance. When serious conflict happens in a relationship, instead of trying to solve it, they build a wall of complete indifference. They act cold, say they do not care, and claim that the issue means nothing at all. Psychological science explains this as a freeze response of the nervous system. This coldness is usually not an intentional act. It is simply that when the pain of disappointment goes beyond what they can handle, their brain automatically disconnects from emotion. They choose to feel nothing in order to avoid being hurt more deeply. This avoidance gives them a temporary feeling of safety. By telling themselves they do not need anyone, they lock themselves inside a strong but empty fortress. The price of this false safety is very high. They lose the ability to connect honestly with others and take away their own chance to experience a full emotional life. To understand why a person keeps these immature behaviors for many years, we need to go deeper into the core causes inside their thinking structure and belief system. This stuckness does not happen randomly. It is the result of many psychological factors tied together. Cause 1. The fear of becoming ordinary. Many emotionally immature people were once children who were labeled as gifted, talented, or special in the past. Receiving too much praise for natural qualities such as intelligence, appearance, or talent from a young age unintentionally shaped a fixed mindset inside them. The reward system in their brain was programmed to respond only to outstanding results, intense praise, and the feeling of being special. When they enter the adult world, they realize that real life does not work that way. Every lasting achievement requires long periods of hard work, repeated effort, and many boring details. To them, having to do ordinary tasks and follow normal processes feels like an insult to their natural genius. They get stuck in the fear that if they accept doing ordinary things, they will become an ordinary person. So they would rather refuse to take part in real-life activities, choosing to stand on the outside to protect the illusion of their own greatness, instead of facing the risk of failing in real life. Cause 2. The trap of unlimited potential. One very clear thinking pattern in emotionally immature people is that they always see themselves as someone with unlimited potential. In their imagination, they could become a writer, a programmer, an entrepreneur, or anyone they want to be. However, in cognitive psychology, Making a real decision always comes with the concept of opportunity cost. When a person decides to commit to a specific major, a specific job, or a specific relationship, it also means they must give up all other possible choices. For an emotionally immature person, this giving up creates a very painful psychological feeling, almost like losing a part of their identity. They are afraid of being tied down, afraid that other doors of opportunity will close. As a result, they fall into a temporary way of living. They may do a certain job or be with a certain person, but deep down, they always think that this is not their real life yet. They keep standing in the waiting hall of life, refusing to board any flight because they are afraid it may not be the perfect flight. Keeping unlimited potential makes them feel safe, but at the same time, it also prevents their life from ever turning any value into reality. 3, the illusion of perfection. Emotionally immature people often have an extremely rich and beautiful fantasy life. In their mind, they build perfect stories about a brilliant, successful career, an ideal love with no flaws, where their partner meets all of their needs without having any weaknesses. However, the real world is naturally imperfect and full of scratches. When they start a project, they immediately have to face dry tasks like fixing coding errors, handling paperwork, or solving small conflicts. When they enter a relationship, they realize the other person is also just a normal human being with bad habits and personal limits. The huge gap between perfect fantasy and rough reality creates deep disappointment. Instead of accepting the imperfect nature of life and patiently shaping it, they use the hair in the soup mindset. As soon as one small mistake or one small difficulty appears, they immediately see the entire experience as bad and worthless. They quickly give up and retreat back into the safe fantasy world inside their mind, where everything always follows their wishes. Cause 4. Using pain as a shield. Another common reason why a person refuses to grow up is that they have an external locus of control. This means they believe that all their failures, difficulties, and current state are completely decided by outside factors, such as poor parenting in the past, unhealed psychological wounds, or physical and mental health problems. These wounds and difficulties are completely real, and they are big challenges for anyone. However, the difference with an emotionally immature person is that they unconsciously turn these wounds into a safety blanket, an absolute reason to excuse themselves from all adult responsibility and duty. When they face a demand to change, they immediately point to the past or their symptoms and say, "Because I am like this, I cannot do it." Blaming past circumstances helps them release the guilt of not achieving what they expected from themselves. They choose the position of an eternal victim because a victim does not have to try, does not have to take responsibility for their own life, and has the right to demand unconditional patience and care from the people around them. Emotional maturity is not a state that automatically arrives when a person reaches a certain age. It is a process of training, learning emotional regulation skills, and restructuring the way we think. To escape the loop of the eternal child, a person needs to take practical and patient steps of change. Solution 1. Make friends with boredom. The first and most important step is to change the way the brain's reward system works. Instead of only chasing short-term excitement, instant praise from the online world, or sudden passion projects, a person needs to learn how to make friends with the boredom and repetition of everyday life. Scientific reality shows that every kind of lasting progress is built from small, simple actions repeated consistently day after day. Start with the most basic habits. Clean your living space, follow your work schedule, finish unfinished tasks without waiting for inspiration or perfect conditions. Maturity is measured by a person's ability to push themselves to finish the work even on their worst emotional days, while understanding that consistency is far more valuable than short bursts of effort that do not last. Solution 2. Dare to commit and accept trade-offs. To overcome the fear of being trapped and losing options, a person needs to change the way they see commitment. Refusing to make any choice in order to keep unlimited potential is actually an illusion, because time still passes, and not choosing is also choosing to stay in the same place. Practice making commitments from small ones to bigger ones, and stay with them until the end. Choose a major and finish it. Choose a job and stay with it for at least a few years. Choose a relationship and go through difficult stages together with the other person. Understand that giving up 99 other doors to walk through one single door is not a prison. It is the necessary condition for turning unclear potential into real achievement. The value of a life is shaped by what we build from our choices, not by choices that remain forever in theory. Solution 3. Actively name your emotions. When facing conflict or emotional pain, a person needs to actively give up the mask of sulking or rage and practice the ability to explain. This is the skill of turning instinctive reactions into constructive communication. Instead of staying silent or yelling, take a quiet moment to question yourself and name your emotions clearly using statements focused on yourself. For example, instead of saying, "You always ruin everything," learn to say, "I feel anxious and disrespected when the plan is changed without telling me first." Clearly expressing your needs and boundaries gives the other person a chance to understand and adjust. At the same time, it frees you from depending on others to guess what you are thinking. Clear communication is one of the clearest signs of a mature mind. Solution 4. Allow yourself to be weak. Finally, to lower defensive pride and remove the cold mask, a person needs to learn how to accept and have compassion for their own flaws and limits. Maturity does not mean becoming a perfect fortress that never feels pain or failure. On the contrary, a mature person is someone with enough inner strength to look directly at their own weaknesses without feeling ashamed or attacking themselves. Allow yourself to be weak, to fail, and to seek help from trusted sources when needed. Instead of using pain as an excuse to run away, use self-compassion to comfort the inner child and accept that you have an imperfect past, but you still have the power and responsibility to shape a different present. The journey of emotional maturity is one of the hardest challenges in life, and it requires a great deal of courage. It forces us to step down from the launch pad of great fantasies and place our feet on the messy ground of reality, where limits truly exist. This process cannot happen overnight. It is similar to patiently learning a completely new language after you have already grown older. If you recognize that you or someone close to you has signs of an ungrown child, do not rush to criticize or feel disappointed. See it as a development process that still needs to be shaped, with scientific trust and absolute patience. The moment a person bravely takes off the defensive masks, accepts trade-offs, and takes full responsibility for their own life is the moment that truly marks their maturity from deep within. Thank you for watching today's video from Apex. Goodbye, and see you in the next content.